Tonight, the final budget before the next election.
Mr. Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Yeah. Jeremy Hunt is cutting national insurance, putting more cash in people's pockets.
Growth up, jobs up, taxes down. I commend this statement to the House.
Also tonight, finding out what went so badly wrong with the police investigation into Emma Caldwell's murder. STV News understands the Justice Secretary is ordering a public inquiry into officers' blunders.
Brendan Rodgers could be in the stands for the next Old Firm derby after being charged by the SFA for his comments about referees.
And Glasgow has got some new hairy beasts. Meet the Coos at Pollock Park. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. It's the final budget before we go to the polls in the next UK election, and Jeremy Hunt's cutting national insurance again. That means someone earning £35,000 should get around £450 extra in their pay packets over a year. Duty on drink and fuel is being frozen, so the price of a pint and filling up your tank should stay the same. But he's introducing a tax on vapes for the first time, with taxes also going up on cigarettes.
The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, branded the financial plans as the last desperate act of a party that has failed. The Scottish Government say it's a betrayal of public services. The Chancellor is even facing criticism from his own party in Scotland because the windfall tax on oil and gas firms is staying in place. The Scottish Conservatives say it's bad for North Sea jobs. We'll have analysis from Westminster and Holyrood shortly. First, here's our political correspondent, Ewan Petrie.
This was a Chancellor under pressure to turn his party's fortunes around ahead of an election.
When's the election, Chancellor?
Many of the measures in his red box were already known before he found his way to the House of Commons.
Mr. Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Yeah.
So his key announcement came as little surprise.
Employee national insurance will be cut by another 2p from 10% to 8%. And self-employed national insurance will be cut from 8% to 6%. It means an additional £450 a year for the average employee, or £350 for someone self-employed.
The Chancellor announced an extension to the windfall tax on energy companies. He said the non-dom tax regime will be replaced, and he increased the high-income threshold for child benefit to £60,000.
A plan to make work pay versus no plan. Growth up, jobs up, taxes down. I commend this statement to the House.
Labour called the budget a last desperate act of a failed party.
Britain in recession, the national credit card maxed out, and despite the measures today, the highest tax burden for 70 years.
This is a last-ditch, tone-deaf approach to desperately try to recover in the polls. It's the embodiment of the Tory party before the people.
For the hospitality industry, there was disappointment after their calls to cut VAT were ignored.
The UK is literally the highest VAT for the hospitality industry. In Europe, you're 7%. We had it 12.5% in COVID, and that was an amazing help to the whole industry. It needs to go back to that.
Layla is about to start an apprenticeship at this packaging firm. She fears the longer-term impact of the cut to national insurance.
They're trying to benefit us and make these little cuts, but it adds up in terms of the spending on the other end of the line. So you wonder if maybe you have longer waiting times, things like that, and it might actually not be worth it in the end.
90% of sales here go to the drinks industry. They welcome the freeze in alcohol duty, but wanted the Chancellor to go further.
So if the whisky industry is doing well, we're doing well. A lot of countries around the world, whisky is a high export product. actually set their domestic prices based on the prices here in Scotland. So higher prices in Scotland mean higher prices globally, which impacts the competitiveness and the growth in Scotch whisky.
The Chancellor believes the UK is about to turn the corner on growth. He hopes this package of measures will be enough to win over voters ahead of an election, whenever that may be. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
Our political correspondent Paris Goutsianis joins us from Westminster. And Paris, it's not just the opposition who aren't keen in this budget. The Scottish Tories aren't happy either.
Very unhappy, John, with one policy in particular. That policy is the one-year extension to the oil and gas windfall tax. One minister under pressure is the Scottish Tory Andrew Bowie, an energy minister no less, who represents the battleground constituency of West Aberdeenshire and Kincardine, where so many offshore companies are based and their workers. At their conference just last week, the Scottish Tories said that they would defend the oil and gas industry. Now they're hitting it for another £1.5 billion. Like his party leader, today Mr. Bowie has voiced publicly his unhappiness. In the past few moments he said that he's spoken to the Chancellor, so he's likely to keep his job for now, but he'll face a tough choice when this comes up for a vote in the coming days. I asked Douglas Ross about this row just after the budget statement.
I fought hard to get it out of the budget. Now, I'm disappointed it was in there. I'm disappointed that's a choice that the Chancellor has taken, but I also understand the really difficult balancing act he had with this budget. But I'm now going to use every opportunity going forward to ensure that this legislation that is required doesn't go through.
You can see how this looks, though. I mean, what does this say about the influence that the Scottish Tories have at Westminster?
I could have done the usual political thing and said nothing about it and shied away from it, or I could have stood up for the North East and the oil and gas sector. The other parties, the SNP and the Labour Party, their plans would see tens of thousands of jobs lost. Both of those parties don't want to see any further drilling for oil and gas in the North Sea. We are the party that is supporting that.
And Paris, with the Chancellor grabbing some of their policies, where does this leave Labour ahead of an election?
That's right, John. Labour's main money-raising policies were extending the windfall tax and also abolishing the non-dom regime. That covers people who are registered to pay tax overseas. Now they're boxed in because all that money is being spent on tax cuts, which they also feel compelled to support.
The budget was dressed up by the Chancellor as being something that it's not. He said right at the start of his speech, essentially, you've never had it so good, but we're in recession. Of course we back the national insurance reductions in terms of tax. Of course we back the stealing of our policy to scrap the non-dom status. This is all good news, but it's all too little too late from a fag-end government that's out of ideas and should be out of power.
Two things to watch for now. Does this tax giveaway boost Rishi Sunak's poll ratings at all? And also next week's budget votes when the Scottish Tories face a tough decision.
All right, Paris in Westminster, thank you. Well, our political editor, Colin Mackay, is in Hollywood. Colin, do you think this budget makes an early election more likely, and does it change the Scottish Government's budget?
Well, the £295 million that's flowing to the Scottish Government from this is going to be completely swallowed up by NHS and local government spending. The Deputy First Minister, Shona Robertson, says there's no extra cash here to reverse the spending cuts planned for the housing budget, but there has been fevered speculation as to whether this budget would provoke a May the 2nd election. I'm not convinced that cutting 2p off the national insurance is going to cut enough ice with enough voters. The Chancellor has already cut 2p off in November, and the Conservatives are still 20% behind Labour in the polls. Now, having said that, in 1992, the then Prime Minister John Major called in a general election right after cutting 2p off national insurance, and he went on to win. But a poll carried out by Savanta just this afternoon, just in the hours after the budget, suggests that 74% of people that they questioned don't think that this is enough to help them with the rising cost of living. So it seems that perhaps Sir Keir Starmer asked the right question in Parliament this afternoon. Who do they think this makes feel better off? And if you look around with the cost of mortgages and things like that, I don't think many people feel better off just now.
All right, Colin, from Holyrood, thank you very much.
In other news, STV News understands a public inquiry into the police's handling of the Emma Caldwell murder inquiry will be announced by the Justice Secretary tomorrow. Today, it emerged that killer Ian Packer plans to appeal his conviction and 36-year jail sentence.
Our senior reporter Gordon Cree is at the police headquarters in Edinburgh, where Emma's family have been meeting the Chief Constable. So Gordon, what's come out of that meeting?
Well, Kellyanne, this is one of a series of meetings Emma's mother Margaret and other relatives have been having this week. Yesterday, they saw the First Minister. Today, it was the turn of Joe Farrell, the Chief Constable of Police Scotland. Of course, there are lots of concerns from the family about how the investigation into Emma's death back in 2005 was handled by the then Strathclyde Police. That includes a number of opportunities being missed to stop Packer, officers who'd questioned him being told not to pursue him as a suspect, and a decision to go after a group of Turkish men instead. The upshot of that was Packer was free to attack other women for many years. Well, in a statement, Joe Farrell says Emma Caldwell, her family and other victims were let down by the police in 2005 and that she has personally apologised. She also gave her backing to a public inquiry. Here's what the family's solicitor had to say.
Margaret said today she is tired, but she will fight on for the truth and nothing but the truth. Emma's family believe it is not only Ian Packer who evaded justice for nearly 19 years, but police officers who betrayed the most fundamental duty of all to protect life. Officers stand accused of sabotaging an investigation, persecuting officers who had gone after Packer, spying on journalists and perpetuating a lie for some 19 years. For far too long, those responsible for gifting a killer his freedom have remained in the shadows. Now they must face the glare of public scrutiny, and the only forum for that can be before a statutory judge-led public inquiry. The victims of Packer deserve nothing less.
And Gordon, what do you know about the public inquiry?
Well, tomorrow the family have another meeting, this time at the Crown Office with the Lord Advocate, who is the head of Scotland's prosecution service. Then we are expecting an announcement in Parliament from the Justice Secretary, Angela Constance, who should confirm an inquiry. Now, I understand officials are still finalising exactly the form that will take and how it will work. We should get some more details tomorrow. As for Ian Packer, he remains in prison serving his sentence. He has indicated he plans to appeal, but pretty much everyone convicted of major crimes says that. The family say they're no longer interested in him. Their focus is on the failings of the police. Kellyanne.
All right, with the latest. Thanks very much, Gordon. Well, other stories now, and 5 people have been arrested after the UK government building in Edinburgh was sprayed with red paint in a protest over the conflict in Gaza. Campaigners from This Is Rigged also removed the Union flag and replaced it with a Palestinian one.
The comedian and TV presenter Hardeep Singh Kohli has appeared in court charged with 3 counts of indecent assault, 1 of sexual assault and 2 of breach of the peace. Kohli made no plea at the private hearing at Glasgow Sheriff Court.
Now, a group of female funeral directors say more women are needed in the industry to combat everyday sexism. New figures reveal the workforce is only 17% female. Those working in the industry say a thick skin as well as strength is needed to do the job.
Ahead of International Women's Day, our reporter Laura Alderman has been finding out why they chose this unusual but rewarding path.
It's a job that requires heavy lifting, both physically and emotionally. But it remains a man's world, as just 17% of the funeral director workforce is female. That's something these women are trying to change. Kim's been a funeral director for 9 years.
We meet with families and arrange funerals. We go to hospitals, nursing homes. Just need to be willing to do all aspects of the job that include this sort of male-associated parts of it, including the driving and things like that, the heavy lifting. You just need to be able to get stuck in.
But as a woman in a traditionally male job, it's not without its challenges.
I think it's more of the older generation, really, sort of, because they have that traditional view that a man is a funeral director, and you'll turn up on their doorstep to arrange a funeral and they kind of look at you up and down and are a bit surprised that you're there. Or the other thing is that you'll arrange the funeral and then they'll say, so will you be there on the day? And they don't expect you to be conducting the funeral on the day.
Sharon worked as a carer for years in Inverurie before becoming a funeral director. She says the skills needed for that job lend themselves well to this one.
You're still caring. You're caring for the families. and also for the deceased. Empathy is heightened, I think, with females, especially if a client's lost their mum or their daughter. I think there's a connection if they're dealing with a female rather than a male.
She says there's more gender equality now than when she first started 14 years ago, but many more opportunities are still needed.
Keep push, that's all you have to do. No regrets. I wish I had done it 40 years ago. And even a family member, my granddaughter, is very intrigued in the funeral side of things, and she's even choosing her subjects at school because this is the role that she wants to follow.
So you've inspired her?
Yeah.
Although their numbers are small for now, funeral directors like Kim and Sharon are encouraging more women to take the wheel and try something different. Laura Alderman, STV News.
Other stories in the West, and police are searching for a man following a stabbing near a high street dentist in Airdrie. A 34-year-old man was taken to hospital following the incident on East High Street on February the 28th. A cyclist has been taken to hospital after being hit by a bus in Glasgow. Ayr Road in Newton Mearns has been closed since the incident, which happened around 12:45 this afternoon. The refurbishment of Sauchiehall Street has been delayed until December due to construction issues. The multi-million-pound Avenues project, including the creation of new gardens, cycle lanes and tree-lined streets, had been due to finish this summer. A group of men living with stages of prostate cancer are using the power of football to come together and support each other through their treatment and lives with the disease. Football Fans in Training offers a chance for the men to get together and share their experiences. Those taking part have called it life-changing. Ollie Dickinson has more.
These men are coming together in the shadow of Ibrox Stadium, united by the power of football, but also their experiences of prostate cancer. In the classroom, they learn about healthier choices and well-being.
So red meat's probably your biggest thing that we are concerned with in relation to your prostate cancer.
Whilst on the pitch, they get the chance to exercise together through the game they love. Jim McGinty is one of the men taking part. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2022 and says joining the group has given him a reason to get up in the morning.
It's all right to talk to your pals and that about it, but they don't understand the way other people who you sit with who are going through the same thing, they understand it. It gives you hope, you know, and coming to these classes because they're going through everything with you, they're really good to you.
Tony is another member. He says his prostate cancer diagnosis left him feeling like he had no one to turn to until he found the Football Fans in Training group.
So the big thing about it is the friendship that you develop, that you can talk to each other. I mean, we're all from all backgrounds in there, but there's no airs and graces. We've all suffered or suffering the same thing. It's not all about doom and gloom and talking about the prostate cancer. It's a bit of banter, a bit of football, etc., having a laugh out here. And at some point somebody will mention something and we all chip in.
Whilst the course is based at Ibrox, other clubs across the country are involved. And organisers say when it comes to fighting cancer, there are no team colours.
We have piloted this before Christmas at Rangers and Hearts. We've now got Kilmarnock and we'll shortly be delivering the programme in Aberdeen and St Johnstone. So the hope is to have one next to every sort of treatment centre by the end of the season.
Within the group we have here at Ibrox, not even half of them are Rangers supporters. Some of them don't even follow football at all. So what you've got here is football bringing men together. And what I always say is, prostate cancer doesn't have a colour.
The men will face many challenges as they navigate life with cancer. These workshops offer a moment of light, laughter and learning in an attempt to make it slightly less daunting. Ollie Dickinson, STV News.
Let's get the sport now from Ronnie.
Yes, thank you, John. A very good evening. And we start with some big news from Celtic. And Brendan Rodgers could be in the stands for the next Old Firm derby after being charged by the SFA for his comments about referees following their defeat to Hearts. The Celtic boss labelled the decisions by referee Don Robertson and VAR John Beaton as awful as well as incompetent after Hearts were awarded a penalty for this handball and Yang was sent off for this challenge. The hearing is on the 28th of March. If Rodgers is found guilty, he'll face a minimum of a 2-match touchline ban, which would be against Livingston away on the 31st of March and of course Rangers at Ibrox on April the 7th. Celtic say they will robustly defend Rodgers' case. Hearts chairwoman Anne Budge will not rule out the club reducing further ticket allocations for Hibs fans at Tynecastle after a number of missiles were aimed at Lawrence Shanklin from the away end. Speaking at the latest event to mark Hearts' 150th anniversary, Budge insists she doesn't want the actions of a minority to ruin the Edinburgh derby atmosphere. Jamie Borthwick reports.
It's a year of celebration for Hearts, 150 years after being founded in the capital. But a week ago, the scenes were less joyous as a number of items, including a metal corkscrew, were aimed at Captain Lawrence Shanklin during the Edinburgh derby. State-of-the-art CCTV is being used to identify culprits, but Hearts will weigh up all options if the disorder continues in future fixtures.
So I think it is shocking, actually. And it's not one club, we all know that. So, you know, it's unfortunately a small minority in every club will just plain be stupid. We know how good the derby games are, and for both sets of fans it's what we want. But if we can't achieve it, then yeah, we may have to look at doing what we've done elsewhere.
Hearts were announcing the creation of a heritage trail called the Maroon Mile, which will run from Haymarket to the stadium and coincides with the club's landmark year.
This is about being a community club, doing what we can to help the community and the community helping us as well.
It's a great idea that they're now sort of showing a little bit of the history. It's going to be out there on the streets in the surrounding area. Just to let everybody know what Hearts is all about.
Club captain Gordon has his sights firmly set on a place in Scotland's Euros squad, but first he'll have to win back his club jersey from in-form Xander Clark.
Yeah, we haven't actually spoken about it, but yeah, from a personal point of view, I just want to try and play as many games between now and the end of the season, give myself that best possible chance. Hopefully I get the chance to do that Monday and see where that takes me.
Jamie Borthwick, STV News.
Rangers have touched down in Portugal ahead of tomorrow's huge Europa League tie against Benfica, with former boss Graham Souness warning his old club they'll be in for a difficult evening. Philippe Clement's side were put through their paces in Glasgow this morning ahead of the first leg in Lisbon. Ross McCausland trained despite going off injured at the weekend as Rangers get set for their last 16 clash.
Benfica I worked there for 2 years, are a fantastic football club. Not easy going there. You know, Benfica, I'll give you an idea, Benfica, other than going to Sporting and Oporto, wherever you go with Benfica, you have the majority of the supporters in the stadium. It's a giant of a football club. Much loved in Portugal, and it was, for me, it was just 2 fantastic years working there. I loved every minute of it. They have to go there and somehow keep the crowd quiet, don't do anything daft in the first part of the game, and see where the game takes them. But it won't be easy for them.
Join us again tomorrow for more build-up for that match, Rangers versus Benfica in the Europa League. Bye for now.
All right, thanks, Ronnie. Well, it's been a bright but slightly chilly day. Here's Sean with the forecast.
An icy start to the day will give way to a series of oohs and ahs. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
A very good evening to you. Now, this is a new chart which shows you cloud cover over the next couple of days. Where you see the darker greys, that's where the thickest cloud will be. The best of the cloud breaks you can see are going to remain around the northwest over the next couple of days. That sunshine getting squeezed and squeezed right down to the northwest coast. I expect if you're watching from the lights of Ballachulish, Fort William, Oban, around Ardnamurchan and also Morven here, well, I expect we'll see the best of the sunshine over the next couple of days and feeling quite spring-like with that sunshine. Temperatures 10 or 11 degrees Celsius. Certainly been feeling quite a bit bit warmer out there today with that sunshine around, especially where we've had less breeze further inland. Temperatures overnight tonight, 4 or 5 degrees Celsius. We still hang on to the best of the cloud breaks here in the west, and that gives us a risk of a few mist and fog patches developing 1 or 2 spots too. Now tomorrow the weather not too different. Central eastern it is again. We hang on to more cloud the further east we go. Risk of some light drizzly showers here at times, the best of the sunshine as we head towards Kintyre, Jura, Isla, Col, Tyree, Mull, and also around the Morven area and towards Ardnamurchan. Temperatures up to 10, 11 degrees Celsius again, like today, into the low 50s in Fahrenheit, feeling quite pleasant in those sunny spells. But as said, over the next couple of days, that sunshine getting squeezed and squeezed more towards the northwest coast, and generally many of us becoming largely cloudy. Friday, Saturday, and also Sunday, but I expect Saturday and Sunday the risk of a little bit more drizzle heading its way in from the east. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally, calving season is underway at Pollock Country Park. People are being invited to seize the moment and visit the new residents.
2 little ones have already arrived, with around 26 more to go this spring. Vidushi Tiwari reports.
Pollock Park is home to 70 of Scotland's hairiest cows, and this spring they're expecting 28 more. It's hectic for the keepers, but they say it's all worth it.
It's a busy time for us because you've got to take care of the cows and make sure they're in good condition before the calve, and then as soon as the calve's born it must have the colostrum from its mum for it to survive. So you've all these things to consider. There's nothing better in bringing new life into the world, and it's a great feeling.
These mums are all ready to pop. Most will give birth within the next few weeks. And they'll join this little one. Just days old, he's utterly adorable. And his mum's 14th calf.
We have wee Alistair Dew. He was born a week ago on Saturday. They're so inquisitive when they're first born. This is their time to figure out the world. So sniff everything, lick everything, the little kid, I think, innit?
The last of the new arrivals is expected by May. So, if you're in the mood for a bit of fresh air, pop down to Pollock Park and see if you can catch a glimpse of these wee cuties. Vidushi Tiwari, STV News.
Oh, lovely. And that is all your moves for the moment?
Oh, I was waiting for it. You should take a week off.
Listen, John, let's just milk it. Milk it. Good night.
Good night.